Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Gavinsky's Tutorials, and today I'm looking at Mela, which is a really nice synth. I like this a lot, by Nicolosi. And if you're watching this video in the first 2 days that it's out, you have a chance to win one of 3 free copies of this app. Look at the pinned comment at the top of the YouTube comments section for details. Thanks to Nicolosi for those codes. Okay, in the video today, I'm going to talk about all the different sections of the synth. I'm also going to look at the separate FX app. So Mela is basically 2 apps in one. You get the synth, which also contains all these effects, but then you also get the FX as a standalone unit that can be applied to any other kind of audio source, other synths, or in this case here, for example, a file, okay, an audio track, whatever. You can apply this to anything. So I've also got a little instance of Schroeder on here, which in my last video, by the way, I really applied a bit too heavy-handedly. So apologies for the clipping in that video. This reverb really needs short decay settings, so I've got it on a very short setting today. I like what it's adding here. Okay, so I've got an instance of piano motifs, and that is sending MIDI into Mela. And this is a preset called flanged. It's a keys preset, so it's polyphonic and so on. So this is where we access the presets, and we can just click on presets we want. Or another thing we can do is swipe here. Swipe left to go forward, or right to go backwards. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is look at the oscillator section. So we can see that the synth has 4 oscillators, but at the moment only 3 of them are being used. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off all of them except for one. So we do that by clicking here. This, you can also see we have different types of waveforms available. That one's off already. Click this one off. Okay. Now I'll turn off the FX section as well. Oh, that's off. I'll turn off the filters. There are 2 filters. And then we can check here. There's a bit of pitch bend and stuff going on. That doesn't really matter. Flanger, distortion, and so on are off, so these things are not going to be affecting it. All right. So first thing we can see here is this shape knob, which changes the sound of the oscillators. And if we look at the manual, there's a very good manual with this. You can see exactly here how things get changed. So for example, this is a triangle. So when it's at 0, it's a triangle. At 100%, it's a sawtooth. If it's a square, it can change into a pulse. When it's set to trapezoid, it can change from triangle to square. Sine will change from a pure sine to a distorted sine. And phase distortion, it will change from something more like a square wave to a sawtooth. So let's just have a listen to those different waveforms now. Now in phase distortion, we also have the harmonics setting. Putting this up will add in even harmonics. When it's at 0, it's just odd harmonics. I hope I'm remembering that right, but I think that's how it is. Let's have a listen. So I really love the triangle and the phase distortion oscillators in this. Now here we can adjust the semitones. So this is basically a transpose. We've got a range of 24 in either direction. And then here we have a detune. Can go half a semitone in either direction. Now, one thing this doesn't have, which I wish it had, was double click to put back to default. But when you do click, you get this. So you can just click 0, and now it's back here. Okay, pan. Level. So let's add another oscillator. Pan 1 to one side, 1 to the other, for example. Right, so you can go in here and build up the sounds that you want. Now let's just bring it back to the original setting. And let's look at the filters. So you can see here we have an XY pad, and here it says frequency and resonance. So when you see the XY pads, the first label will apply to the X-axis, the second one applies to the Y-axis. So moving along here, we're going to be going up and down the frequency. Here, we're going to be increasing resonance. Here, we can morph between low pass, band pass, and high pass. And here we have different filter types with different slopes. 24 decibel slope is going to be a bit more extreme filtering effect than this milder slope. Let's have a listen. And drive adds gain to the input. If we put the resonance to 100, it's self-oscillating. It's a really nice filter section on this. Okay, and here we have a bunch of different envelopes and LFOs. So this is the amp envelope, and this is how we change the attack, for example. We click on this little diamond-shaped thing here, drag it over here. If we click here, we can change the type of curve. Here we're changing the curve for the decay. Here we're changing how long the decay is. Here we're changing the sustain level and release. There are different modes here. So let's take a look at those. What I'll do for this is take off this input for a second. Okay. So it's currently on sustain, and that means that it's basically recognizing this sustain level, and as long as I keep my finger on the key, it will just keep sustaining the note, right? But if I choose trigger, let me bring the decay down. Do you see there, even though I held my finger on the note, it didn't sustain. So it just follows the decay and it basically ignores the sustain. So this is useful for maybe percussion sounds and things like that. And loop will just follow the envelope but keep looping it. So it's not going to sustain indefinitely. It's going to go back to the start and trigger again. So it's like the trigger mode, but on a loop. And we have different, I'll change this back to sustain. So we can set up different envelopes. We can set up LFOs with different waveforms, control the rate, the depth, the phase. We can sync it, in which case this rate will change to a quantized value. When it's like this, it's free. Bipolar will determine the direction that the LFO moves the target in. Let's say, for example, my target is filter frequency, and the filter frequency is set at, let's say, 500. If the LFO is bipolar, it's going to move down from that value and then back up and then increase. So that value will be the center that the LFO roams around. But if bipolar is off, it's just going to move in one direction. It's not going to move down, back to the center, up, and back to the center again, right? Now, what do we use these for then? Well, we use these in the mod matrix. I mean, the amp envelope will determine the envelope of the notes, right? But these other things can all be assigned to different targets in the mod matrix. Like if we look here, LFO2 is assigned to filter 1 frequency, and so on, right? So we have great modulation possibilities right in the synth itself. But we also have exposed parameters. So if you want to use external LFOs or whatever, you can do that. Not only that, these are just beautifully organized. As I've mentioned before, so many developers just kind of stick the parameters there, but they're completely disorganized, really hard to find stuff. I'm thinking of a couple of particular developers now. I'm not going to mention any names, but you know who you are. And seriously, it's a real pain in the ass having to go through those things. So here, everything is so beautifully organized. It's really easy to find what you're looking for. So that is wonderful, wonderful. Okay, now let's just change preset maybe. Let's find a pad. Okay, pads. One thing I'll say about this preset menu, by the way, is for user presets, there are no submenus, and the developer is aware of this. It's pretty annoying. I mean, it's definitely not a deal breaker because this is a great app and I strongly recommend it. But I do find there are so many synths that really lack in the preset department. You know, the factory presets are organized, leads, pads, and so on. But you can see here, for example, there are a bunch of Sound of Israel presets and BT, I can't remember who that is. These are all just kind of muddled together. They're not organized. That is one thing that I really want to see changed as soon as possible. Okay, so let's go to the pads. This, by the way, is just going to change the octaves of the keyboard. You have to swipe, right? If you want to change presets. Okay, this is pretty nice. I really like the presets in this synth, actually. Great presets. Here we have things like the hand will latch the note and so on. Here, by the way, here we can control whether this design and shape section will be selected like this by clicking on their tabs, or both shown together. Okay, so well, why don't we just do it like this, and then we have a bigger keyboard, right? So let's see the FX section. So, okay, we're on delay. Let's start with that. So we could sync it, for example, here. All right, these things are obvious. I'm not going to go into these. Now here, then, we have left and right feedback. So here we have the feedback for the left delay, and here we have the feedback for the right delay. So this going here is going to increase the feedback of the left delay. Have a listen. You know what, I'll get something more percussive for this, maybe. We'll get a keys sound. Okay. Can you hear that? How in the left ear, the feedback is much heavier than in the right ear. And now we're getting more feedback in the right ear. And here. We're getting a lot in both. Okay, we have a filter here for the delay. Now this is pretty cool. Here we control the delay. So the feedback for the delay. So here it's just normal feedback mode. Here it inverts the signal before feeding it back in. Here it sends the left signal into the right side when it sends the feedback in, and vice versa. And here it does both, cross and inverted. The smoothing is pretty cool. So let's take off sync for a second. Let me change the delay time. Now let me put on smoothing and change it. kind of hard to hear actually with the mix up that high, maybe with the feedback up this high. Let me bring the feedbacks down for that. You hear how with the smoothing up, it's basically a smoother transition. Okay, so that's the delay section. Just put this back. Flanger is currently bypassed. Let's turn it on. Okay, flanger. Bypass it again. Chorus. So you see here, the XY pad controls 2 LFOs, the rate of 2 separate LFOs. Mix intensity, that's like the depth for the LFOs. This is like a dry wet. So here, we're not getting any chorus. Okay. Phaser. Stereo spread. Distortion. So here we have the tone that is basically going to control a low pass filter. See, a lot of the highs have been taken out. Okay, drive, we talked about that already. This controls the harmonics. Here we control the type of distortion, saturation, or fold back. Lovely distortion section in this. So let's hear some. Let's see if there's anything else. Well, in the global section, you can control the overall volume and the number of voices. If you allow a lot of voices, there's a risk of high CPU usage. Let's take a look, for example. You see I put on 16 voices. Look how this has jumped. It's because there is all the FX process each voice separately. So that's why it can be heavy on that. So be careful about this. All right. So glide. Okay, that's for the glide between the keys. Right. Let's look at. Let's just go through some presets. So put this on again. Here. And let it go through some of the keys. And then I'll take this off to do the bass and lead. Let's listen to some bass. Let's go to the effects first. A few effects here. So you see that'll be using a loop, right? If we looked at the amp section, I'm pretty sure. I just realized one thing I didn't talk about, the routing section. So here we see the routing of the oscillators, the filters, and the FX. And if we change settings here, we can see how we can change all these things around. In this section here, the filters section, we got some pretty cool stuff. So here, the filters are serial, filter 1 first, and then filter 2. Here, they're parallel. Let me change this back to after both filters. Right, so here, it's going through both filters at the same time. This one's pretty cool. Oscillator 1 going into filter 1. Oscillator 4 goes to filter 2. 2 and 3, their output is split. Half goes into filter 1, half goes into filter 2. This is really cool. I don't think I've seen anything like this in any other synth that I noticed anyway. Okay, here you can see for yourself. 1 and 2 going into filter 1, 3 and 4 going into filter 2. Here, 1, 2, 3 going into filter 1, 4 going into filter 2. So this gives you again, great sound sculpting possibilities. Get this up a little bit. That is cool. I love this one. I mean, you really see the potential of the FX section here. Let's hear the pads. bass. Okay, we'll just check out the leads. As I say, there are, preset packs you can get. I think they're free if I remember. Anyway, it's going to make this video very long if I go into those. I'll just quickly look at what we could do with the FX. So when we add a new instance of Mela FX, it's going to sound pretty harsh. And the reason is that the mod matrix LFO is linked to distortion. So let's just bring that down to 0. Or of course we could do that by turning off the LFO depth here, turning off here, a lot of different things we could do. Okay, now, still got something going on. That is because distortion is on. I think everything else is on. There's delay as well, let's bypass that. And here, the filters are off. Okay, so let's have a little play with adding some things to this. So let's try first putting on a filter. Let's make it band pass. And let's make this one band pass. Or let's maybe change it to low pass. High pass. Now let's try a little bit of distortion. Oh, that's delay. That's nice. So of course you could go in to the mod matrix and set up some automation, but we won't cover that now. All right, everybody, so thanks for watching. I think you'll agree that this is a really nice sounding synth. First of all, I love the fact that it has the separate FX audio unit. Love that. The effects to my ears are really nice quality. I love some of the features like the different echo modes. The distortion's really nice. Great mod matrix section, very clear, easy to set up. The synth itself, love the sounds of these oscillators. They sound really good to me. It's very intuitive, easy to use everything here. Nice filters. Only this preset menu is a bit of a letdown. Apart from that, it's brilliant. I think the synth is great. I would recommend it without hesitation. All right, so thanks again, everybody, for watching. Please give this a thumbs up if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't, and see you in the next video. Take it easy. Cheers, folks.